Lesson 1. Other people's opinions are none of your business. There's a particular kind of pain that comes from understanding something 10 years after you needed to know it. It's the feeling of looking back at your younger self and wanting to reach through time, to grab them by the shoulders and shake them awake. But time doesn't work that way. Wisdom, it seems, demands its tuition in wasted years. We spend our youth collecting advice we don't follow, nodding at truths we don't absorb, and dismissing warnings from people who've already lived what we're about to experience. It's not stupidity or arrogance, exactly. It's that certain lessons simply cannot be taught, they can only be survived. The wound has to heal before you can see the scar's shape clearly. This essay explores 5 such lessons, truths that most people grasp only after the opportunity to apply them has significantly narrowed. These aren't pleasant realizations. They arrive with the bitter taste of regret, the weight of what might have been. But they also arrive with something else, the clarifying power of finally seeing clearly. Lesson 1. Other people's opinions are none of your business. In your 20s and 30s, you are haunted by an invisible audience. They watch everything you do, judging your career choices, your relationship status, your body, your achievements, your home, your car, your life trajectory. You can feel their eyes on you constantly. The problem is, they don't actually exist. Most people spend the first half of their lives performing for a crowd that isn't watching and wouldn't care if they were. We make decisions based on what parents might think, what former classmates might say at reunions, what neighbors might notice, what strangers on the internet might comment. We choose jobs we hate because they sound impressive at dinner parties. We stay in relationships that drain us because being coupled looks better than being free. We buy things we can't afford to impress people we don't even like. Sarah was 43 when she finally quit her corporate law position to open a pottery studio. For 15 years, she'd felt the weight of expectation. Her parents had sacrificed to put her through law school, her colleagues saw her as a rising partner, her social circle defined success by billable hours and corner offices. I kept imagining what people would say, she recalls. That I was throwing away my education. Having a midlife crisis. Being irresponsible. When she finally made the leap, something unexpected happened. Most people barely reacted. Her parents were mildly surprised but ultimately supportive. Her colleagues said good for you and moved on with their lives. The catastrophic judgment she'd feared for over a decade materialized as a few polite questions and then, nothing. This is the thing about other people's opinions, they're shockingly superficial and remarkably brief. People have their own lives, their own anxieties, their own invisible audiences to perform for. Your career change or life choice occupies their mind for approximately the length of time it takes to drink a cup of coffee, and then they're back to worrying about their own problems. The psychological research backs this up. That spotlight effect, documented by Thomas Gilovich and colleagues, shows that we dramatically overestimate how much others notice and care about our appearance and behavior. In one study, students who were asked to wear embarrassing t-shirts believed that twice as many people noticed them as actually did. We think we're the star of everyone's show, when really we're barely extras in their background. But the deeper truth is even more liberating. Other people's opinions aren't just less important than we think, they're actually none of our business at all. What someone thinks about you exists entirely in their head, shaped by their own insecurities, projections, and limited understanding of your circumstances. Their judgment reflects their values, not yours. Their criticism often reveals what they're afraid to pursue themselves. Their approval, when it comes, is usually conditional and fleeting. Marcus spent his 30s avoiding coming out as gay because he was terrified of his extended family's reaction. He imagined Thanksgiving dinners filled with tension, whispered conversations, permanent disappointment. At 39, exhausted from hiding, he finally told everyone. Some family members were uncomfortable. One uncle stopped speaking to him. But most people just adjusted. And the ones who couldn't? I realized their discomfort was their problem to solve, not mine to manage, he says now. I'd spent a decade trying to control what was happening in other people's heads. That was never my job. Learning this lesson late comes with a specific kind of grief, the morning of years spent contorting yourself into shapes that pleased others while abandoning the shape that pleased you. It's looking back at the career you didn't pursue, the person you didn't become, the life you didn't live, all because you were afraid of what people might think. And the cruelest part is that those people weren't thinking about you nearly as much as you feared. The people who learn this early, in their 20s rather than their 40s, get to spend decades making choices aligned with their actual values rather than their imagined audience. They get to fail spectacularly without the weight of perceived judgment. They get to succeed in unconventional ways without needing external validation. They get to wear what they want, love who they want, pursue what they want, and discover that the sky doesn't fall when someone disapproves. You cannot control what happens in other people's minds. You can only control whether you give those uncontrollable thoughts power over your controllable life. That's not selfishness. That's boundaries. That's maturity. That's the difference between living your life and performing someone else's script. By the time most people learn this, they've already made major life decisions based on the opinions of people who barely remember having those opinions. The job, the marriage, the city, the identity, all chosen to satisfy an audience that was never really watching. Lesson 2. Time is the only currency that actually matters. Money can be earned back. Opportunities can circle around again. Relationships can sometimes be repaired. But time? Time is the one thing that, once spent, is gone forever. And yet we treat it like it's infinite. In our 20s and 30s, time feels abundant to the point of being meaningless. There's always tomorrow, always next year, always when things settle down. We postpone the conversation we need to have, the trip we want to take, the skill we want to learn, the person we want to reconnect with. We trade hours for money we don't need to buy things we don't want. We spend entire evenings scrolling through other people's lives instead of building our own. We say, "I'll do it later," as if later is guaranteed. Then somewhere in your 40s or 50s, the math becomes unavoidable. Your parents age visibly, and you realize the number of times you'll see them can now be counted. Friends get sick, and you understand that the lunch you kept postponing might never happen. Your own energy shifts, and activities that seemed endlessly available start having expiration dates. Suddenly, time reveals itself not as an ocean but as a timer running down. James was 51 when his father died suddenly. They'd had a complicated relationship, not hostile, just distant. For years, James had thought, "We should really talk," or "I should visit more," or "someday we'll have that conversation about everything." After the funeral, he did the arithmetic. His father had lived 3 hours away. In the 15 years before his death, James had visited maybe 30 times. 30 dinners. 30 conversations. That was it. That was the entire relationship, reduced to countable moments. "I had thousands of hours to give him," James says quietly. "I gave him dozens. And I can never get them back." This is what hits people in middle age like a freight train, the realization that relationships are measured in moments, and the number of moments is shockingly finite. If you see your best friend 4 times a year, and you have 30 years left, that's 120 more times you'll see them. 120 nights of laughter, confession, connection. If you're lucky. Suddenly, missing dinner because you're tired or busy or stressed feels different. Each missed opportunity is literally one fewer time you'll have that experience with that person. But it's not just about other people. It's about yourself. The dreams deferred, the adventures postponed, the versions of yourself you never became because you were waiting for the right time. Elena spent 15 years saying she'd write her novel when work calmed down. She was a marketing executive, always one promotion away from having enough security to take risks. The promotion came, then another, then another. Work never calmed down because that's not how work works. It expands to fill whatever space you give it. At 46, during a routine checkup, she got the kind of news that reframes everything. Cancer. Treatable, but serious. Sitting in that doctor's office, all I could think was, I have never written a single page of the book that's been in my head for 15 years. I've spent 3,000 evenings on work emails and PowerPoint presentations. I couldn't remember the last time I'd spent an evening on something that actually mattered to me. The treatment worked. Elena is fine now. But the experience cracked something open. She started writing. Not later. Not when things settled down. That night. I realized I'd been treating my life like a dress rehearsal, she says. Like the real living would start after I achieved enough, saved enough, proved enough. But this is it. This is the real thing. There is no later version where I finally do the things that make me feel alive. The research on time perception is almost cruel in its clarity. As we age, time seems to accelerate because each year represents a smaller fraction of our total lived experience. When you're 10, a year is 10% of your entire life, an eternity. When you're 50, a year is 2% of your life or a blip. This is why childhood summers felt endless and why decades in middle age seem to vanish. We're not getting more time. We're getting less, and it's moving faster. Young people hear this and nod politely, the way you might acknowledge that yes, technically, everyone dies. It's an abstraction. The urgency doesn't land because the scarcity isn't felt. But somewhere in your 40s, you start losing people. Not someday. Now. Friends get divorced, and you realize their marriage contained all their children's childhoods, which are now over. Colleagues retire, and you see that careers have endpoints. Your own body starts offering gentle reminders that it won't do everything forever. This is when people start making radical changes. They quit jobs that pay well but cost too much of their lives. They move across the country to be near aging parents. They end marriages that are fine but not fulfilling because fine is too expensive when time is the currency. They stop accepting invitations to events they don't want to attend. They start saying no to everything that doesn't matter so they can say yes to the few things that do. The tragedy is how much time is wasted before people learn this. The jobs worked primarily for impressive titles. The hours spent with people you don't really like out of obligation. The evenings collapsed on the couch, too drained from work you don't care about to do things you actually love. The years, actual years, scrolling through social media, watching other people's highlight reels instead of creating your own moments worth highlighting. Bronnie Ware, a palliative care nurse who spent years with dying patients, documented their most common regrets. Number 1. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Number 2. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. The dying don't wish they'd spent more time at the office or answered more emails or impressed more people. They wish they'd spent more time with their children. More nights with friends. More days doing things that made them feel like themselves. You cannot save time. You cannot invest it and earn interest. You can only spend it, and the spending happens whether you're intentional about it or not. Every hour you're alive, you're buying something with time: a work project, a television show, a conversation, a nap, a walk, a worry. The question isn't whether to spend it. The question is, what are you buying, and is it worth the only currency that actually matters? People who learn this early treat time like the scarce, irreplaceable resource it is. They build lives around what they actually value rather than what they're supposed to value. They say no a lot, which lets them say yes to what counts. They understand that being busy is not the same as being productive, and being productive is not the same as living well. The people who learn it late spend their middle years in a kind of frantic recalculation, trying to rebalance equations that have been skewed for decades. Some manage it. Some don't. But all of them share the same haunted look when they talk about the years they can't get back, spent on things that didn't matter, while the things that did matter waited patiently, then stopped waiting, then disappeared. Your time is running out. Not theoretically. Actually. Right now. The question is, what are you buying with it? Lesson 3. You cannot earn your way into self-worth. There is a lie that drives millions of people through their entire adult lives, and it goes something like this: when I achieve X, then I'll finally feel like I'm enough. X changes: the promotion, the salary, the body, the relationship, the house, the recognition, but the structure remains the same. We believe that self-worth is something we earn through accomplishment, something waiting for us on the other side of success. It isn't. It never was. Self-worth cannot be achieved because it isn't an achievement. It's a decision. And most people spend decades not knowing this, climbing ladders that don't lead anywhere, collecting evidence of their value while somehow never feeling valuable, proving themselves to themselves over and over while the feeling of enough remains perpetually out of reach. David became a partner at his consulting firm at 34. It was the goal that had organized his entire adult life, the reason for the 80-hour weeks, the missed birthdays, the neglected friendships, the relationship that fell apart because he was never really present. Making partner was supposed to be the finish line, the moment when he could finally relax into the satisfaction of having arrived. He made partner on a Tuesday. By Thursday, he was already thinking about the next level. Managing partner. The executive committee. There was no finish line. There was just another race. I kept thinking the feeling would come, he says now, at 47. That sense of I did it, I'm successful, I can stop proving myself now. But it never came. Every achievement just revealed another gap. I'd accomplished everything I set out to do, and I still woke up feeling like I wasn't enough. That's when I realized the problem wasn't my resume. It was that I'd spent my entire adult life trying to earn something that couldn't be earned. This is the trap. We think we're working towards self-worth, but we're actually running from the fear that we're not worthy. Every achievement is an attempt to silence the voice that says you're not enough. But achievements don't silence that voice. They feed it. Because if your worth depends on achievement, then you're only as valuable as your last success. You're only as good as your next performance. You're always one failure away from worthlessness. The psychology of this is well documented. It's called contingent self-esteem, when your sense of worth depends on meeting certain standards or achieving certain outcomes. People with contingent self-esteem are more vulnerable to depression, anxiety, and burnout. They're more likely to view setbacks as reflections of their fundamental inadequacy rather than as normal parts of being human. They're less resilient because their entire sense of self is built on a foundation that can crumble with one bad quarter, one rejection, one failure. Rachel spent her 20s and 30s chasing thinness. Not just for health or even aesthetics, but because she'd somehow internalized the belief that being thin would make her worthy of love, attention, respect. She dieted obsessively, exercised compulsively, weighed herself multiple times a day. When she was thin, she felt temporarily acceptable, until she saw someone thinner, or gained a pound, or ate something bad. When she wasn't thin, she felt fundamentally flawed, undeserving of happiness until she fixed herself. At 42, exhausted and entering perimenopause, her body stopped cooperating with the script. She couldn't maintain the weight she'd maintained for years. Her body changed, and she had a choice: hate herself forever, or question the entire premise. I started asking myself, why do I believe I'm only worth loving at a certain size? Who told me that? And is it actually true? The answer was no one she respected had told her that, and no, it wasn't true. I'd spent 20 years trying to earn the right to take up space in the world. But that right was never contingent on anything. I already had it. This lesson, that you cannot earn your way into self-worth, comes late for most people because the alternative is terrifying. If worth isn't earned through achievement, then what prevents worthlessness? If you stop proving yourself, who are you? If your value isn't determined by your productivity, your appearance, your success, your usefulness, then what makes you matter? The answer is both simple and profound: nothing makes you matter, and everything makes you matter. You matter because you exist. Your worth is inherent, not conditional. You are enough not because you've done enough, but because enough is what you are, before you do anything at all. This sounds like self-help nonsense until you've exhausted yourself trying to earn what was always yours. Until you've achieved everything you thought you wanted and still felt empty. Until you've failed publicly and survived, and realized that your worth didn't evaporate with your success. Until you've watched someone you love, imperfect, flawed, struggling, and understood that you don't love them because they earned it, and they don't need to be different to deserve that love. People who learn this early save themselves from the exhausting performance of constant self-justification. They can fail without falling apart because failure doesn't threaten their fundamental worth. They can succeed without it going to their heads because success doesn't create their worth either. They can rest without guilt because their value isn't measured in productivity. They can be imperfect, struggling, human, and still know, not hope, not aspire, but know, that they're enough. People who learn this late often learn it through collapse. The burnout that forces them to stop performing. The illness that strips away their ability to achieve. The failure is so complete that they can't outrun it. Rock bottom, in a strange way, becomes a gift. When you've lost everything you thought made you valuable, you discover whether there's anything left. And there is. There always was. Thomas had a stroke at 53. For 6 months, he couldn't work, couldn't exercise, couldn't do any of the things he'd spent his life believing made him who he was. He was just there. Recovering. Dependent. Unproductive. I kept waiting to feel worthless, he remembers. I'd built my entire identity on being capable, competent, and strong. Now I can't shower without help. But something strange happened. The people who loved me didn't love me less. My kids didn't stop calling. My wife didn't leave. I wasn't providing anything, accomplishing anything, earning anything. And I still mattered to people. I still mattered, period. The real tragedy isn't that people spend years earning what can't be earned. It's what that striving costs. The relationships were neglected because they didn't advance your career. The joy postponed because you hadn't yet earned the right to relax. The compassion withheld from yourself because you hadn't met some arbitrary standard. The present moment is sacrificed to an imagined future where you'll finally be good enough. That's not the end of ambition or growth. It's the beginning of the kind that comes from wholeness rather than lack, from creativity rather than fear, from love rather than the desperate need to prove you deserve to be loved. When you stop trying to earn your worth, you're finally free to discover what you're actually capable of. But first, you have to stop running. You have to turn around and face the question you've been avoiding: what if I'm already enough, exactly as I am? The answer will either break you open or set you free. Usually, it's both. Lesson 4. Fear is a terrible guide, but we follow it anyway. The safest path is rarely the best path. The comfortable choice is rarely the meaningful choice. And yet, when we look back at the major decisions of our lives, most of us can see fear's fingerprints all over them. Not the reasonable fear that keeps you from touching hot stoves, but the insidious fear that keeps you from touching life itself. We don't call it fear, of course. We call it being realistic or being responsible or waiting for the right time. We call it practical consideration, risk assessment, careful planning. But underneath the respectable language is the same thing: we are afraid, and we let that fear make our decisions for us. The career you didn't pursue because it wasn't stable enough. The person you didn't approach because you might be rejected. The business you didn't start because it might fail. The move you didn't make because it was too uncertain. The truth you didn't speak because it might cause conflict. The dream you didn't chase because people might laugh. All of these non-decisions, these paths not taken, these lives not lived, fear made those choices. And here's what makes this lesson particularly cruel: fear is an excellent protector but a terrible guide. It will keep you alive, but it won't help you live. It will keep you safe, but safety and meaning rarely occupy the same space. Jennifer stayed in her marriage for 12 years after she knew it was over. Not because of love, not even because of comfort, but because of fear. Fear of financial instability as a single mother. Fear of hurting her children with divorce. Fear of being alone at 45. Fear of admitting failure. Fear of what her family would say. Fear of the unknown stretching out in front of her, vast and unscripted. I told myself I was being mature, putting my kids first, being realistic about the challenges of single parenthood, she says now. But really, I was just terrified. And I let that terror steal 12 years. 12 years of modeling a loveless marriage to my children. 12 years of teaching them that you stay in situations that drain you because leaving is scary. 12 years of my one life spent in a relationship that was long dead because I was afraid of what came next. She finally left at 47. The divorce was hard. The financial adjustment was real. The loneliness was sometimes overwhelming. But here's what she didn't expect: the relief was immediate and enormous. The day I moved into my small apartment with my kids, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in over a decade. I'd been so afraid of this moment, and when it arrived, it wasn't the catastrophe I'd imagined. It was freedom. This is what people discover when they finally stop letting fear drive. The thing they were afraid of is almost never as bad as the fear itself. The disaster scenarios we construct in our minds are almost always worse than the reality. We spend years, sometimes decades, avoiding something that, when we finally face it, we survive. And then we look back and think, I could have done this 10 years ago. I could have had 10 more years of actually living. The research on regret supports this overwhelmingly. When psychologists ask elderly people about their biggest regrets, the pattern is clear: people regret the things they didn't do far more than the things they did. The risks not taken. The words not spoken. The chances not seized. We regret our inactions more than our actions, our silence more than our speech, our safety more than our courage. Marcus spent 15 years in a corporate job he hated because it paid well and offered security. He had an idea for a business, a good idea, one that excited him, but starting it meant leaving his salary, his benefits, his predictable path. Every year I told myself, just one more year to save more money, to be more prepared, to have a bigger cushion, he says. One more year became 15 years. At 43, his company downsized. He was laid off. The security he'd sacrificed 15 years for evaporated in a single meeting. The irony was almost funny, he says without smiling. I'd stayed for security, and the security was an illusion. It was never real. I'd just traded away 15 years of potential aliveness for the feeling of safety. He started the business at 44. It struggled at first, then stabilized, then grew. He's not wealthy, but he's engaged. The work matters to him. He wakes up with purpose. I should have done this at 29, he says. I'd have failed faster, learned faster, gotten here faster. But I was so afraid of failing that I guaranteed I'd fail. I just failed slowly, quietly, in a way that looked respectable from the outside. Fear tells us that failure is the worst possible outcome. But failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the path to it. Every successful person has failed, often spectacularly. The difference is they failed while moving forward, while trying, while risking something that mattered. Fear wants us to fail safely, by never trying at all. Here's the thing about following fear: it feels responsible in the moment. It feels like wisdom, like maturity, like taking care of yourself and the people who depend on you. You can construct entirely reasonable narratives about why the fearful choice is the right choice. But when you're 60 or 70, looking back, those reasonable narratives dissolve. What remains is the awareness of the life you didn't live because you were afraid. Catherine wanted to be an artist. She had talent, real talent. Her professors encouraged her. She felt most alive when she was creating. But art wasn't a real career. It wasn't stable. It wasn't practical. So she went to business school, got a good job in finance, and spent 30 years in conference rooms making money for other people while her art supplies collected dust. At 58, her mother died. Going through her mother's belongings, she found a box of Catherine's childhood drawings that her mother had saved. Seeing them cracked something open. I looked at those drawings and I could feel the person I was, the person who made those. And I realized I'd abandoned her. I'd left her behind because I was afraid of poverty, of judgment, of not being taken seriously. I chose fear over her. And now I'm 58, and she's been waiting for 29 years. Catherine paints now. She's not famous. She doesn't make much money from it. But when she talks about her work, her entire face changes. She's alive in a way she wasn't for 3 decades. I can't get those years back, she says. But I can stop wasting the years I have left. This is the realization that arrives like a thunderclap in middle age. You cannot eliminate risk from life. You can only choose which risks to take. The safe choice carries its own risk, the risk of regret, of unfulfilled potential, of reaching the end having never really tried. You can risk failure, or you can risk never knowing what you were capable of. Either way, you're risking something. People who learn this early take the risks that align with who they actually are, not who they think they should be. They fail, learn, adjust, and try again. They accumulate scars and stories and competence. They build lives that feel like theirs. People who learn this late spend their 40s and 50s playing catch-up, taking the risks they should have taken 20 years ago. Some succeed. Some fail. But almost all of them say the same thing: I should have been this afraid 20 years ago. At least then I'd have more time to recover, more energy to try again, more years to enjoy the other side. Fear will always be with you. The question isn't how to eliminate it, but whether you let it drive your life. Because here's what no one tells you when you're young: at the end, you won't be comforted by all the disasters you avoided. You'll be haunted by all the aliveness you postponed. The boat you didn't rock. The truth you didn't speak. The person you didn't become. The life you didn't live. All of it will be there, waiting, a catalogue of everything fear convinced you not to try. You can listen to that fear. Or you can acknowledge it, thank it for trying to protect you, and do the thing anyway. One of those choices leads to safety. The other leads to life. You cannot have both. Lesson 5. The people you love won't be here forever. Of all the lessons that arrive too late, this is the most devastating because it's the only one that comes with a deadline you cannot negotiate. Your parents will die. Your friends will die. The people you think will always be there won't be. And when they're gone, what remains isn't the things you did together. It's the things you didn't do, the words you didn't say, the time you thought you had. We know this intellectually, of course. We know everyone dies. But knowing something abstractly and feeling it viscerally are entirely different experiences. In your 20s and 30s, death is theoretical. Your parents are still relatively young and healthy. Your friends are invincible. Loss happens to other people. There's always time to visit, to call, to have that conversation, to say the things that matter. Then time runs out. And the conversation you were going to have never happens. The visit you were planning never occurs. The forgiveness you were going to offer or ask for dies unspoken. And you're left with a very particular kind of pain, the pain of permanent incompletion. Linda's mother died when Linda was 41. They'd had a complicated relationship, not terrible, just marked by unspoken resentments and misunderstandings that neither of them quite knew how to address. For years, Linda thought, one day we'll really talk. One day I'll tell her how I felt about my childhood. One day we'll clear the air. Her mother got sick quickly. 6 weeks from diagnosis to death. Linda sat by her hospital bed those final days, and all the conversations she'd been planning felt impossible to start. Too heavy. Too late. Her mother died, and the clarification Linda had been postponing for 20 years would now be postponed forever. People say you find closure, Linda says quietly. But that's not always true. Sometimes people die and the issues die with them, unresolved. And you have to live with that. You have to live knowing you had years to say something, and you spent those years waiting for the perfect moment that never came. This is the brutal mathematics of mortality. Relationships are finite, and we don't know when they'll end. Every conversation might be the last one. Every visit might be the final one. Every I love yous might be the one you don't get to say again. We don't live like this because we can't, it would be paralyzing. But we also can't ignore it without cost. Robert's best friend from college, Jake, moved across the country for work. They texted occasionally, liked each other's social media posts, always talked about planning a visit. Years passed. They were busy. Life was full. There would be time. Then Jake had a heart attack at 46 and died instantly. Robert got the call from Jake's wife. The last thing Robert had said to Jake was a thumbs up emoji on a Facebook post about Jake's new car. 8 months earlier. That was it. 25 years of friendship, reduced to a thumbs up emoji, because Robert had been too busy to call, too tired to visit, too confident that there would always be more time. I think about all the conversations we didn't have, Robert says. All the times I thought I should call Jake and then got distracted and didn't. All the visits I postponed because work was busy or it wasn't convenient. I had a best friend, and I let the friendship become a series of shallow digital interactions because I thought we'd have decades to be old men together, telling stories. We didn't have decades. We didn't even have years. And I can't get any of it back. The research on anticipatory grief and regret is unambiguous. When people lose someone close to them, their biggest regrets center on relational omissions. Not spending enough time together. Not saying, "I love you" enough. Not asking the questions they wanted to ask. Not sharing the things they wanted to share. Not being present, truly present, when they were together. These regrets are particularly painful because they're based on choices we could have done differently, and we didn't. This lesson comes too late for most people because youth offers a dangerous illusion that the people we love are permanent fixtures in our lives. Your parents will always be there. Your siblings will always be around. Your friends are forever. This illusion is sustained by the fact that, for the first few decades of life, it appears to be true. Everyone is still here. Loss is an abstraction. Then the illusions shatter. A parent gets a diagnosis. A friend dies unexpectedly. A sibling becomes estranged and you realize reconciliation isn't guaranteed. Suddenly, the people you took for granted reveal themselves as temporary. And if you're 45 or 50 when this happens, you look back and see all the years you could have been more intentional, more present, more loving, and weren't. Patricia spent a decade barely speaking to her brother after a family argument that, in retrospect, was about nothing important. Pride kept them apart. Stubbornness. The belief that eventually one of them would apologize and it would all be fine. Her brother died in a car accident at 52. They hadn't spoken in 8 years. I lost my brother twice, Patricia says. Once when we stopped talking, and once when he died. The first loss I chose. That's what I can't forgive myself for. I chose 8 years of silence over the discomfort of one difficult conversation. And now silence is all I have left. This is what people learn too late. Relationships require active maintenance. Love doesn't sustain itself on good intentions and past history. The people you love need to hear it, feel it, experience it, not someday, but regularly. The visits need to happen. The calls need to be made. The forgiveness needs to be offered. The appreciation needs to be expressed. Not when it's convenient. Now. While everyone is still alive to receive it. People who learn this early build their lives around the people they love. They prioritize presence over productivity. They have the hard conversations instead of avoiding them. They say, "I love you" liberally. They create memories intentionally. They understand that career achievements and financial success and personal accomplishments mean very little if the people who matter most are strangers to your actual interior life. People who learn this late scramble to make up for lost time, often discovering they have less time than they thought. They book the trip to see their aging parents. They reach out to old friends. They stop letting minor conflicts fester. They become urgent about connection because they finally understood that connection isn't guaranteed. The tragedy is all the years before the urgency set in. All the Sunday dinners skipped because you were tired. All the phone calls ignored because you were busy. All the "I love yous" not said because it felt awkward or unnecessary. All the presents you withheld because you thought there would always be another chance. Michael's father died when Michael was 47. Going through his father's belongings, Michael found a showbox full of tickets, baseball games, concerts, movies, all the times Michael had said "I'm too busy" or "maybe next time." His father had kept the unused tickets. He kept asking me to do things with him, Michael says, his voice breaking. And I kept saying no. I was building my career. I was focused on my own family. I told myself there would be time later. Those tickets, he saved them. Like maybe one day I'd change my mind. And I never did. And now it's too late. Here is the truth that arrives like a fist to the chest when someone you love dies. You don't get bonus time for good intentions. You don't get credit for the visits you meant to make. You don't get to retroactively have the conversations you postponed. What you did is what you did. What you didn't do stays undone. 4. The people you love are not permanent. They are not guaranteed. They are temporary visitors in your life, here for an unknown and non-negotiable period of time. You can treat them like they're permanent, and then be blindsided when they're not. Or you can treat them like the temporary miracles they are, and love them accordingly. This doesn't mean living in constant fear of loss. It means understanding that presence is a gift you give while you still can. That I love you costs nothing but means everything. That the time to repair relationships is before they're broken beyond repair. That the moment to show up is now, not later, because later might not come. Most people figure this out standing at a funeral, looking at a casket, drowning in regret for all the time they didn't take. The calls they didn't make. The visits they didn't prioritize. The love they felt but didn't express. They learn the lesson perfectly, completely, devastatingly, one day too late. Don't be most people. The people you love are here now. Not forever. Now. What you do with that knowledge, whether you let it change how you show up, how you prioritize, how you love, will determine whether you spend your later years grateful for the time you shared or haunted by the time you wasted. There is still time. But there isn't infinite time. And one day, without warning, there will be no time at all. The question is, when that day comes, will you have loved the people who mattered as fully as you could? Or will you have loved them theoretically, distantly, incompletely, waiting for a future that never arrived? These 5 lessons, that other people's opinions don't matter, that time is the only real currency, that self-worth cannot be earned, that fear is a terrible guide, and that the people we love are temporary, share a common thread. They all involve understanding what actually matters before it's too late to fully act on that understanding. The cruel part is that these lessons cannot be taught, only learned. You can read them, nod at them, even agree with them, and still not feel their truth in your bones. Because intellectual understanding and lived wisdom are different animals. One lives in your head. The other rewrites your life. But here's the gift hidden in the pain: it's never too late to start living like you know these things. You cannot reclaim the years you've already spent, but you can stop wasting the years you have left. You can stop performing for an audience that isn't watching. You can stop treating time like it's infinite. You can stop trying to earn the worth you already have. You can stop letting fear make your decisions. You can start loving the people who matter like they might not be here tomorrow. Because they might not be. And neither might you. The question isn't whether you'll learn these lessons. If you live long enough, you will. The question is, will you learn them while there's still time to let them change your life? Or will you learn them in retrospect, cataloging regrets that can never be undone? Wisdom doesn't have to come too late. But for most people, it does. Don't be like most people.